Thank you, Abby. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Look, Abby is in the room. Abby is in the building. That's what I'm talking about. I'm getting ready to post it on my channel as well. So we can let everybody know that we are live over here doing our thug sizzle with the education piece. How you doing today, El Teddy?
I'm okay. I am okay. I am relaxing today. I'm in a good mood. It is January. It's my birth month. It is the month that my fraternity, my beloved noble clan, we celebrate Founders Day. January is just a great month. It's just a great month.
Happy
So
Founders Day to you. I have to make sure to reach out to all my Kappa friends on tomorrow. You know, I stopped a long time ago trying to do the whole Founders Day thing because it's just too many, especially in January. Y'all was just doing too much in January. But I happy Founders Day to all Divine Nine who will be celebrating in the month of January. So oh no, she said I'm gonna need. Hey Tanari, how you doing? Welcome, babe. She said I'm gonna need you to start at 3 p.m. I'm at work. I'm sorry. Well, right now, this is our inaugural. Oh, thank you, Team Capricorn and Shondo. She done dropped it all in the link. Thank you, Tanari. Thank you, baby, for joining us. So this is our inaugural live for our new channel, the Teacher Project 2.0. I'm going to let El Teddy. No, actually, maybe I should introduce myself first because my credentials, El Teddy's credentials are a little longer than mine. So I'm just going to go ahead and I had this idea. Well, actually, this idea was birthed through conversations between myself and El Teddy. We have both individually on our channels discussed education, and they're always good conversations that get people engaged. People always have some really great questions. And I wanted to create a channel that I could separate from the other things that I do on YouTube that could be focused on these issues. Something El Teddy said this morning, going into election season, it is also important that we're paying attention to these issues. And so for myself, that's sort of why I wanted to do this, why I birthed it in my mind, and El Teddy is helping me bring it to fruition. So that's sort of where that is coming from. What about you, El Teddy? Why did you agree to help me on this journey or join in this journey with me? And then look at me like I was crazy when I asked you.
I want to say, I almost want to say I was bullied into it. No, I'm joking. I'd say that in jest.
No, I never bully you.
As an educator, educators have a passion for education. There's no way that you do what we do. There's no way that you spend the amount of years that we've spent in education and not have a passion for it and everything that it encompasses. So you want to, because you have that passion. I can't say that I want people to have the same passion for it that I do, but what I do want people to have is some good, sound knowledge about education, to be empowered and educated on education so that they can make sound and great decisions for their children and for their loved ones that may, or themselves, in education.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let's just start off with credentials. I'm sure people know us. A lot of our people from our other channels are coming over. So you guys know us, but just to introduce myself, I am a 21 years in education. I started teaching in 1999. I was a sub for 2 years before that, a substitute teacher 2 years before that, and started my formal teaching education in the District of Columbia Public Schools, where I taught for 10 years. During that time, I held a variety of teacher level positions like department chair and testing coordinator, and a lot of those. If you're in education, you know what I'm talking about. I could probably list 3 or 4 other things that I did at that time. When I left DCPS, I became a an advocate for parents who have students with special needs. And so that is where I sort of got my crash course on special education. I did that for a little over 2 years, and that was very eye-opening. From there, I went back into the classroom, and then I went into administration. I was a grade level administrator for 2 years. From there, I taught at the Juvenile Detention Center, which was, again, an eye-opening experience, dealing with all the things that come with students who are facing jail time and all of those different things. And I also sort of got a crash course in the juvenile detention service and how that connects to education, what we are obligated to do for students who are in jail, and how all of those two systems work together. You want to talk about bureaucracy? I could share. I am currently back in the classroom. I teach IB, I teach AP. I am a literacy coach at my school currently. And that is where I am. I have my undergraduate degree is in political science. I have a master's degree in teaching social studies, and I also have a second master's degree in educational administration. So I do have some other classes and certificates, but it is what it is. So that's me. El Teddy.
Well, I will not be doing that big of a introduction.
Don't do that. Don't do me. Don't do that.
God, I feel like my little resume, dear Lord.
I was trying to compete with your resume because I know your resume was, I just had to make sure I compete. You know what I'm saying? I had to put it all out there because, I know your resume is extensive, sir.
Tell you, I'm just little old me. I have been teaching since 2004. So this is year 16 for me. I've taught middle school and high school, mainly English the entire time. On the secondary level, now on the post-secondary level, I've taught in the sciences. On the college level, I've taught in the sciences, but on the secondary level, it's been in English. I've done so many things, from just being a regular classroom teacher to being a grade level chairperson, discipline coordinator, department chair, administrative assistant to the principal. Now I am no longer in the classroom. I work for the district, and I work in the English department for the district English department. And I do curriculum mapping and scope and sequences, and I do curriculum development for secondary English high school. I also do professional developments for teachers in advanced academics, in gifted gifted studies, and English as a second language instruction. Yes, I also travel, and I do workshops for different school districts where I will mainly the focus of those workshops and professional developments are in the area of advanced academics and students of color, specifically African American students, and more so now as opposed to in the past. There's a very big target on a focus of African American males in the area of advanced academics, because there seems to be a vacuum there, and that does seem to be dwindling. So I do a lot of lecturing and workshops and professional developments on that. Hit my email up, and I can come to a city near you if we make those arrangements. So that's what we do. So the rest of I have several degrees. I have 5 degrees, two bachelors, 2 masters, and a doctorate. And well, that's 6 degrees. I'm sorry, and a specialist degrees. My educational degrees is a master's in curriculum and instruction and a specialist degree in educational leadership. So,
okay, Mr. I'm not going to be that extensive. Okay, see, there you go.
no, I can spend 12 minutes running down, all
I think I
of
spent 12 minutes, sir. Anyway, what I want to make sure is that people understand that we know what the hell we talking about. Okay.
And I do want to say that I've taught I've taught all levels in terms of I've taught from the special ed all the way through the highest of the highs in terms of gifted and advanced academics. I've taught on the college level. I have taught in the hood, the hood of hoods, as well as in some of the most fluid areas where I have had students that drive Rolls Royces and Bugattis and stuff to school as their car. So I've done everything in between. So I've spanned the gamut of in terms of demographics.
Yeah, I haven't I've never done elementary school. I've done 7 through 12. I have lectured. I've had friends invite me into their classroom and do lectures on a college level, but I have not taught a college class. People keep encouraging me to do that. I do think that's something I will look into. But yeah, I haven't the schools haven't been quite as affluent as driving Bugattis. However, when I was in DC, the school that I taught at was a magnet program, and there were a lot of council members, and the mayor's son went there and that kind of thing. So just want to make sure that everybody, it's not to brag, it's just to make sure that everybody understands that when we're talking, we are coming from a place of a level of expertise. It's not just you know what I'm saying? I just want people to understand that. Again, it's not about bragging, because myself and El Teddy could really sit here a lot longer if we really wanted to just brag. But it's not about that. It's just really about letting you guys feel trusted and knowing that if we're telling you something, we sort of know what we're talking about. And if we don't know, I know myself, and I can speak for El Teddy, if we don't know, we will look it up. We will do the research and figure it out, because I certainly don't want to give anybody false information either. So with that being said, I think I've sort of touched on what the vision, I guess, is, or the goal. My biggest thing is I just want to create a safe space for people to come, talk, share their experiences, get information. Definitely want to invite people to come and share their points of view and their experiences in different areas. And I want people to feel comfortable in doing that. We have our email. Please feel free to send us any questions, any show ideas, anything you guys want to hear us talk about. Not to limit us, but I definitely want us to definitely put a focus on the Black experience as it relates to education, and the LGBTQIA experience as it relates to education. I think those are two groups that, just like in regular society, are disenfranchised when it comes to education, especially Black boys. Has been my experience, something El Teddy touched on a minute ago. El Teddy, your vision for the channel, what it is that you hope to bring and accomplish.
My vision right now is pretty blurry because I'm my glasses are pretty foggy, and I can barely see.
Yeah, you want my rag, boo? Want my rag? I got a glass rag for you.
I got need to go get one out of the room, but I just what I really would like for is this to be a place where people can come and get some questions answered, and get insights on things that they just don't know. Some pull back the curtain and allow people behind the velvet rope, so that they can go places and be empowered. Because I think too many times other races and creeds of people make sure that they empower and educate their own about things that they need to know in the realm and scope of education. And too many times we don't do that as a people. And I do think that we need to do that, because education is so important to any human being, but especially those of us African Americans living in these yet to be United States of America.
I got you, Abby. That's actually on my list already, but I'll definitely make sure that I put a star next to it. Abby made the suggestion of doing a show on IEPs and advocating for your child. That's actually one of the first shows I really want to touch on. I think it's very important, and I know that that is something that I have professionally dealt with and personally dealt with friends and family. And El Teddy, I know you've spoken on that as well on your channel. In reference to IEPs, how to work it to your child's advantage. Okay, we'll touch on all of that. There are a lot of layers that would have to definitely be a multi-leveled situation because there are a lot of layers to the special education system in this country, and how it relates to education, myths versus reality. A whole lot of myths out there about IEPs and what can and can't happen with a student that has an IEP and things like that. But that's definitely on the list, Abby. Definitely on the list. I wanted to, excuse me, guys. I hear what you're saying. Anybody else have any suggestions before I kind of move forward? But definitely hit the email. Abby, when you get a chance, can you drop the email in the chat, please, to make sure everybody has the email? It's real simple. The email is the Gmail, is the name of the channel, but just make sure people have the link so they can drop any emails to us, and we'll make sure we check that regularly. What would you say the state of education is right now, El Sadie? If you had to do a state of education address to the country, I don't need a full speech, but like, what are your top few things that you think are concerns as far as the state of education right now in our country?
One of the biggest, most prevalent issues that I don't hear brought up enough, you only hear it in the circles of professional educators, is the public versus charter. That is one of the biggest things going right now in education. The public versus charter, versus charter. Where's the money? Actually, your public dollars are going into both.
Absolutely.
But they are not run the same way. And so there's a lot of misconceptions and myths from inside the educational arena as well. Some professional educators are uneducated on public versus charter as well, and what they can and cannot do. But I really think that that is something that is quite, well, I shouldn't say is going to be, but it is something that has infiltrated itself into education with people's eyes closed. And I don't think that the public was purposely not made aware of it infiltrating and permeating through everything that is education. There's no talk of education right now in America without understanding that it's not just public schools anymore. You know, when we talked education some years ago, you basically were speaking about public schools. Private schools were their own entity, and they ran themselves, however they saw fit and however they chose. But now, when you think about education, you got to think the public schools as well as charter schools, which has introduced a whole nother thing, because it's all about money now, and making of monies now with public funds. So that's probably in terms of the state of education. One of our other big things is the widening gap. It has not closed the gap between the educational gap between the in terms of what's being offered in terms of resources and tools and outlets and things for students here in this country, specifically black children. And a lot of the workshops that I do when I go different places is a lot of people do not know how to meet the needs of black children today. They just don't. And when you have the onset of the Teach for America entities, and there are other entities like Teach for America, there are a lot of them now that are putting people who have not dealt with black people a lot in places that are mainly majority black, and they're not knowing how to deal with them. And now that child has lost a whole year of education. And now that's a whole different ballgame. So all of those few topics right there are really big things right now as well as, and I know Ebby brought it up, but the explosion of special education and people, for lack of a better term, and this is going to come out harsh, being made to feel like, okay, there's a lot of misdiagnoses. I'll just put it like that, and I'll leave it there. There's a lot of misdiagnoses of students who are said to need special education, and they just don't. It should. There are students who do need it, but it should still just be a small percentage of students that are considered special needs or special education, and that number is exploding. It's almost equal in terms of it's getting to the point where it's getting close to the equal point of general ed and special ed, and that's scary.
Absolutely. I know for myself, not to piggyback too much on what El Teddy said, so I'll ditto what he said, but I want to add something. It's funny, something Danny said in the chat. I feel the same way. When we start talking about going into election season, we've got to pay attention to the fact that Betsy DeVos, who is the head of Department of Education, is a total, I mean, incompetent isn't even a strong enough word. I need El Teddy to pull out one of his SAT words for me, because incompetent doesn't even give the full, I don't even know how the word for this woman, but we definitely need to be paying attention to what she's doing, because she's moving in silence, but we've got to be paying attention. I have a friend that works for the Department of Education, and you guys would be surprised at some of the things that she's doing under the radar, because we're paying attention to tweets instead of paying attention to policies. But that's for me, that's a big thing. For myself as an educator, someplace that I've had to personally grow and personally have to expand myself in the last few years is the LGBTQIA population in our schools. For myself, it's something that how we deal with students on the spectrum and things of that nature has changed since I started teaching. It is something I've had to expand myself and knowledge base and actions. And so that's something that I want to engage and share with other people as well, because I want to continue to grow in my sensitivity and understanding of students who are dealing with their identifying themselves and dealing with all the elements that come with that. Again, that's a lot to it. And something that is dear to my heart that I left out of my list of resumes is that I worked for the union for 2 years full time. I was a full-time employee for the Washington Teachers Union for 2 years. And that experience, as it relates to teachers being proactive in their own success, existence. So I definitely want to touch on what unions are doing in the country, how you can be active, what you should be doing. One of the biggest things when I worked for the union was teacher engagement. The union is sort of like insurance. Nobody wants to pay attention to it until they need it. You know what I'm saying? So, but you pay for it. If you're somewhere where you're a member of the union, it comes out your check anyway. So you might as well be engaged in it. So for myself, those are some issues that I definitely want to make sure that we are addressing and dealing with. Oh yeah, Abby said there's also misdiagnosis of ADHD. Yeah, absolutely. And we know that that's directed towards Black boys. We know that the numbers are skewed when it comes to Black boys. I have a nephew, you guys know my nephew, I love him to death. And he's rambunctious. He's not fearful. He will climb up on anything. He will jump down on anything. He listens when he feels like listening. And my sister started using the terms bad. And I said, stop, don't do that. Don't call him bad. Don't use the word bad. First of all, he's 2. So he's doing what 2-year-olds do. And I was telling her, I said, you have to be very careful, because what you don't want to do is in your mind, put him in a box, because then when he goes to school, you don't want them to feel like, because that's how it starts. It sounds little and it sounds like a small thing, but that is how it starts. And he goes to school doing these things, and the first thing out your mouth is, well, he bad. That's a trigger. And then they're going to start talking about him being tested and all that. And you know what I'm saying? And so I definitely agree with you with that one, Abby, as well. Not Abby. You know what, Abby? She said we don't need an SAT word. She's just stupid. I love my Abbykins. Anyway, so we didn't want to hold you guys up long, but I wanted to do maybe a quick story time before we kind of maybe get into some questions if people had any questions. Do you have a story, your most impactful, your funniest? I don't really want to tell a sad teacher story. I think we can definitely get into that when we address certain issues, but you have a most impactful story, El Teddy, or funny story, or your first, I don't know, something, you know, you tell great stories. I should have went first because you tell great stories.
I don't know what kind of story you want. Is it from when I was a teacher or when I was a student?
Oh, that would be interesting. Now I could tell you some stories when I was a student, honey. I was not a great student, and maybe that's why I deal with the kids the way I deal with the kids, because I know them. They are me. I am them. You were not the kid that I was in school. Well, I don't know. You tell us. What do you want to share?
I remember when I was teaching college on campus before I moved to do online courses. When I was still doing on-campus instruction at a college, at a university, and this was, God, this was right after I got my doctorate. So this was maybe, because I got my doctorate in 2007. So this was maybe 2008 or 2009. Anyway, I was teaching a class, and on the syllabus, it didn't have my name. It said TBD because I had got it at the last minute. So it's when they printed out the course selection sheets and all of that, it just said TBD. And so I remember and a friend of mine told me to do this because if you think I look young now, you should have saw me back then. That was 10 plus years ago. And so I went and sat in the back of class. I got there like before everybody. So I was like one of the first and second people in the class. So I sat in the back of the class, and it was mainly white students. So there was this white girl that was in the class, and there was a bunch of them congregating before the teacher came. And so she's back there talking to, the boys and the girls. She's the life of the party. Every question is ended, every sentence is ended like a question. And oh my God. And So anyway, she's going on and on about, I can't believe that they don't even have who's going to be teaching this course. And I hope he isn't a dick, because I can't deal with the teacher that's a dick. Because I just know anytime I've had one of these courses where there's nobody there, they always have somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. And they're always a dick about everything. And so everybody's just laughing. She's making all of these jokes and kiki and everything. So I purposely waited until we were about 10 minutes past the time where class was supposed to start, where people started to get restless. So then I grabbed my bag, got up, went to the front to the lectern, put my bag down on the little desk that was right there, pulled out the syllabus, and introduced myself. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I will be, and this is such and such class. I will be your instructor for this year. And when she looked at me and turned red like the cover of my tablet here, and walked out and never came back, withdrew from the course. Walked out. Wow. She was so embarrassed. And she was like going in and going hard. And the fact that I was there the whole time listening to her say all of this, she was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. I had a fun time teaching that class, but she never came back. Walked out and never came back. Withdrew from the course.
Oh, wow. I was sitting here thinking, because one of my funniest stories, I already told it a couple of weeks ago when I did one of my lunchtime chats, when I talked about my Asian student who we took to the Blacks on Wax Museum, and he learned about lynching, and he was just like, yo, Like, this is crazy. Like, I know for me, my biggest, I guess what's most impactful for me is seeing the success of my former students. Obviously not every story is a success story, but the ones that are, for me, are fulfilling, especially the students who came to you a certain way and now you see them being so successful or definitely finding their niche. Like you said, you've worked in the lowest to the highest. And I know that when you deal with challenging students who come to you with, they got the world on their shoulders kind of thing. And then fast forward 5-10 years later and they've graduated from college or they've found a career and you run into them and you're like, wow, like, yes, you know what I mean? For me, the Chick-fil-A by my school, one of my former students is a manager there. He always, whenever I see him, he don't never let me pay for my food. I have students who are cops, police officers. I have students who are attorneys. Like every walk of life. I have a student who's a dentist, a former student, I should say, who's a dentist. So that for me is really what's impactful for me. You know what I'm saying? As far as a specific story, one of my funniest stories is my first year teaching. And this isn't about education, but this is about me figuring out how I had to handle myself. Because when I first started teaching, I'm short anyway. Like most of my students are taller than me now. And I was a lot younger then, was a lot younger. I'm not going to tell you my age and you'll figure out how old I am, but a lot younger.
58.
You know what? And with that being said, I had a student who was rough. Chick was rough. And I call myself disciplining her. You better stay after school and blah, 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 right? And the classroom I had was a corner classroom, so it was only one door in, one door out. And to this day, I don't know why the child stayed, because she was that kid that would get up and walk out and be like, yeah, make me stay. To this day, I don't know why she stayed, but she stayed. And I call myself fussing at her. I'm just giving her the right act. You're not gonna be disrespectful in my class. And just my first year teaching. I don't know nothing from nothing. And I started noticing that she was balling up her fist. So in my mind, I was like, she balling up her fist. Hold on, let me switch gears. So I looked at her and I said, go on and hit me. But if you hit me, you better knock me out. Because if not, I'm going to fuck you up. And my mom, she looked at me. She was like, oh, okay, you cool. And she was my best friend for the rest of the time. She was my best friend. She wouldn't let nobody dog me. She wouldn't let anybody talk about me. She tried to fight people. I was like, girl, it's good. We good. But I felt like in that moment I was being tested. You know what I'm saying? Now, I wouldn't have hit that child. But in my mind, I was like, in my mind, I was just like, is she? Because again, this is my first year teaching. I was like, is this child really about to put her hands on me? And I think she thought about it for a moment. I think she really thought about it. But that taught me a lesson in reference to dealing with students, especially students. Come to find out, this child was basically raising her kid. Like the only time she was treated as a child was at school. She was raising her siblings. Mama was running the streets. Daddy was nowhere to, after I got to know her, I learned her story. And that was something that is very important.
We definitely have to do a show on the first year teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have good first year teacher stories. That is the worst experience of
it. Is.
I don't have good stories from my first year. Nothing good comes. Any new teacher, this is just a precursor to that. Do not judge education on your first year. The first year is awful.
The first year is terrible. My first year teaching. Let me tell you something. My first and second, really for me, I honestly think my second year was worse than my first year, because in my first year, at least I knew I didn't know what I was doing. In my second year, I thought I had figured it out, and I still didn't have it figured out. And if I could find every student that I taught my second year, I would give them an individual apology and be like, I was not a good teacher. I did you a disservice. Like I can be honest and say that my second year teaching, I want to find all of those kids and just apologize. Because I know, and that doesn't mean they didn't learn anything, but I know I wasn't a good teacher. I just know I wasn't.
I think my second year teaching, and remember, my first 3 years, I was at a school that looped. So I had those kids my first year in 6th grade, and then the second year in 7th grade. And anybody know anything about education? The worst grade level in all of education is 7th grade. The worst. Any teacher across America, the worst grade level is 7th grade.
And that's where I started.
Worst. And my second year was 7th grade. I don't think I taught anything. All my attention and energy was on discipline. The entirety of my effort, focus, and energy was on discipline. I didn't teach. I had intentions. I had lesson plans.
Oh, yeah.
No instruction. I guarantee you they didn't learn a single thing. And they tell me, oh, we learned a whole lot. I talk to some of them now. In my mind, listen, my whole focus was on discipline. The entirety. Oh, it's a mess. Just my first year.
And that's what I'm saying. My first year teaching, I feel like I knew I didn't know what I was doing. So I tried a little bit harder. But baby, my second year teaching, I thought I had the game figured out, honey. And no. But you're right. We definitely have to do the because here's the thing. First of all, they haze the first year teacher. I don't know about your experience, El Teddy, but I know in my experience, they gave me the worst daggone kids in the building.
All the kids. Anytime somebody's absent, they giving you all the overflow kids. Oh, so and so we ain't got no sub. Y'all going on over here to his class. Tell him I told you that he got to keep y'all today. Like, wait, what? I gotta tell with my kids.
Man, and then the other teachers haze you because they were actually taking bets. My first year teaching, the veteran teachers took bets because we had a large. My principal, my first year teacher was like a Joe Clark. Like she literally was the Joe Clark of DC. She cleaned that school up. And by the time I got there, it was like one of the best schools in DC, but that's not where it started. And so as a result, she was a hard person to work for. So she always had a large turnover. So my first year teaching, I was one of 14 new teachers. And what I found out later was that there were teachers, they were actually taking bets on how long we were going to last based on, those first couple of days of teacher or of, when you go in for the teacher development days before the kids come. So based on what we said, did, acted on those first couple of days, they were taking bets. Oh, she won't be here till Christmas. Or she'll be gone after da-da-da-da-da. Or she'll last the whole year. And there was a teacher, I'll never forget, Mr. Tiermeyer. I'm going to call his name. Tiermeyer was a white guy. And he looked like the stereotypical redneck. He wore cowboy boots. He wore a cowboy hat. He drove an old pickup truck. He had one of those mustaches that twirl at the ends, like one of those mustaches. He wore the same thing every day. He wore a starched white shirt and blue jeans, cowboy boots every day. That is what he wore every day. And he was very off-putting. Now, once I got to know him after my first couple of years of teaching and he opened up to me, he was a cool dude. But my first year teaching, he would not speak to me. When I say he would not speak to me, I mean he would not speak to me. So in my mind, I was like, this old racist, da-da-da-da-da. How dare he not speak to me? Oh, because mind you, it was a black school, black neighborhood, majority black staff. So he stuck out like a sore thumb. It wasn't that many white teachers on staff. And I was like, and he not going to speak? Oh, he's so racist. He this, he that. Oh my gosh, I could not stand Mr. Tiermeyer. So my second year teaching.
Hey, Just Jess.
Hey, Just Jess. My second year teaching, all of a sudden now, I'm his best friend. Oh, he's just talking to me. I said, now last year, you would walk by me in the hallway like you didn't even see me. He said, look, in my career, I've seen so many people come and go. I didn't know if you were going to last. I didn't feel like wasting my energy getting to know you. But you're back, so we cool. I said, and that's the kind of stuff you deal with as a first-year teacher. Like, he legit was like, it wasn't no need me really talking to you or getting to know you because I didn't know if you was going to stay. So after I came back, he was like, oh, okay, you good. So I think somebody in the chat asked about that, how we're treated by the other. That's the kind of stuff you deal with as a first-year teacher. Now, there's some people that bend over backwards to try to help you. I'm not going to say that those people don't exist. But there are also those veteran teachers that give you the side eye like, we'll see if she can handle it. I'll deal with it if she can handle it, honey.
I found that I felt like I was on an island by the other teachers because I didn't come at the beginning of the school year. I literally came the last
Oh,
of the first marking period.
oh, that's hard. That's hard to come in. Yeah.
So, and I took over a class where the teacher had no classroom management. So
Oh,
they were
yeah.
like bouncing off walls. Nobody wanted to help me. I didn't even know how to use the copy machine. I had to figure that out by myself. I asked the principal secretary, "What is there a manual for this?" Go look over there in that drawer. It's somewhere in that drawer in that closet over there. I had to go search for that to learn how to use the copy machine because nobody would even teach me how to use a doggone copy machine. And I had to come up with my own little tricks for discipline and things. It was off. It was so rough.
Mm-hmm.
I thought God was. I used to sit in my car and cry and say, "God, are you playing some kind of cruel joke on me?" Like I literally would sit in my car and like just put my head down, like, "No, God, no, 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 no." It was hard. It was awful.
Hey,
Um,
hey, CC. Thank you, boo.
it was awful, but you learn, you grow, and now watch this. By my third year, they were sending people to my class, new teachers to my class to learn tricks of the trade. I was like, I ain't helping you.
Okay.
I was one of the people. No, I'm not helping you. Do nothing. You go figure it out on your own.
Figure it out on your own, honey.
Ain't
Figure it out.
nobody help me. Shoot.
Right.
Yeah, after a while, I started to help the new teachers. Like, especially when I became department chair, I wanted to help the new teachers because I was like, we need you way too bad. Because if you don't do it, then they're gonna send them
I got
kids
to
to
do it.
class. I ain't got that type of time.
Dami, I'm sorry, boo. I posted on my YouTube. You're right, I didn't post it on Instagram, and I apologize for that, sir. I apologize. Please forgive me, Dami. You know I would never intentionally leave you out of the fold.
I saw that China White. You asked a question earlier about, I think, mental diagnoses and
Yeah, I wrote that
IEPs.
down. But yeah, go ahead, Elton.
So that's definitely something that we can address when we do talk about that. There's a lot of misdiagnoses from professionals in terms of special education. And we can speak on it then, there are actually psychiatrists and child psychologists that are known in areas, if you don't know, for being able to, oh, I need my child to be diagnosed such and such. This is where I take my child, be it gifted, be it special ed, be it whatever, outside of the school district, because they know the system and they know the school district are only allowed to use these psychologists that work for the school system, but they cannot deny a diagnosis or prognosis from a licensed, a psychiatrist or a school psychologist either. So then they go out. It's a whole, there's a whole thing with that, and we definitely can address that, China White.
Yeah, I wrote that down because I want to do. I can address it, but I definitely want to do more research so I can bring websites and resources when we address that, because you're right. One of the things that I'm noticing, I started noticing it becoming more prevalent when I was at the jail. I saw it before I started working at the jail, but definitely when I was at the jail, the diagnosis of PTSD is starting to become a more and more prevalent of a diagnosis with students, with young kids. And so that is definitely something that I wanted to look into for my own edification, and learning more about the diagnosis and how it manifests itself in children. We always think of PTSD and think of people who were in combat and things like that, but they're now really starting to bring that label in. And Dami, we're going to need your expertise as well, sir. Well, I'm asking for your expertise because of your field and what you could bring to the table. You already are unofficial researcher producer anyway, honey. Dami be dropping the links, honey. He be dropping the links. But yeah, I know for myself, my undergrad was not in education. So I didn't have not one education class when I walked into a classroom for the first time. And so that added another level of a challenge as well, because that's true, Dami. That is definitely true. Definitely true. And I've seen that in my experience as well, Dami. I've definitely seen that. manifest itself. So my first teaching experience was also very much I didn't get thrown in the middle of the year. But I literally was hired the Friday before, like, no, I'm gonna lie, the Thursday before school started. No, yeah, but it was like Thursday night. It was like it was Thursday evening. By the time I got my paperwork that I was hired, it was like 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So I literally went to the school where I was going to be teaching that Friday, and I, found my classroom. They showed me where the books were and all that good stuff. Literally the Friday before Labor Day. And back then, DCPS went back to school after Labor Day. So my first day of school was that Tuesday. And I was moving from North Carolina. So I literally drove to North Carolina that Saturday, packed up my apartment, moved back that Sunday, and spent all day Monday trying to figure out what I was going to teach. Because ain't nobody showed me about no lesson plan. Because remember, I didn't go to school for education. I didn't know nothing about no lesson plan, how to write a lesson plan, what's supposed to be in a lesson plan. I didn't know nothing about all that. So
as y'all can see, this will be an 80-20 relationship. She'll be doing 80% of the talking while I sit here and look good. And I'll sit here and add my little.
That's a lie.
Yeah, this will be an 80-20 relationship.
That's a lie.
One of the things that I definitely think that we do need to, and we will be negligent if we did not do, is there are a lot of things that just the viewing public, parents, and people outside of education do not know and do not realize that influences decisions that are made and rules that are in place. And a lot of times people will come to the school ready to rant, rave, fuss, and fight and burn down the house, not knowing that there are things in place, there are rules in place for particular reasons. And there are a lot of things that go behind the reason that something happened to your child, or the reason that your child can't do that, or the reason you as a parent can't do something or don't have the right to do something. People think that because it's a public school and public funds go into it, and they are paying their taxes, that they give them the right to do and say and maneuver any way they want to within a public school and make whatever rules they want. And that's just not the case. So definitely a focus that I definitely want to have is giving you a lot of insights from the inside that you just may not be aware of, that you may be like, well, why my child got to learn such and such? Well, there's a very good reason for that. And so there's a lot of different things. For example, I'm gonna give you a quick 45-second story. I ain't gonna do like some people and make it 45-minute story, a 45-second story. As an English teacher, one of my students asked me, because I make it a point that every student that comes to my classroom, I only let students write in pen, and you can only write in cursive. I was never taught to write in cursive. Here's some cursive handwriting practice sheets, boo. Go home, practice. Because after the first marking period, every paper you turn it to me that's not in cursive, I'm throwing it in the trash. I had a parent come ready to beat me down. My child should not have to learn cursive. That's stupid. They don't need it no more. They have computers now. I said, well, ma'am, let me tell you why. I, as English teacher, need to make sure that before your child leaves my 10th grade class, and because most of them will be getting driver's licenses during this grade level, they must leave my classroom with a developed signature. How a signature is developed rudimentally comes and foundationally comes from writing your name in cursive. And then there are derivations and derivatives that come from that you add on for yourself. But it starts initially, and going back in the day, and in some high level legal arenas, they only accept your name written in cursive with representation of your first name, middle name, and last name on a legal document. They will tell you that. And so I had to explain that to this parent. That is why every child that comes through my classroom, yes, you will be writing in cursive. Because I need to make sure that when you leave here and you go and get your driver's license and they ask you for your official legal signature that will be on documents and that's on your driver's license, this is how I sign my name. You need to have that coming out of that. And so she was like, oh, I never thought of that. And you can't do that the computer. Yeah, ma'am, you really can. And let me do my job because that's why I am, licensed. That's why I'm here. Because when you go to the doctor, more often than not, if your doctor say your daughter has the flu, you don't go. "Well, my doctor ain't got no flu. Well, why my child got to take the medicine for the flu?" You say, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll go get that prescription and make sure my child gets better."
Yeah, that's definitely an issue that we deal with. And just for the record, that was longer than 45 seconds, but I'm cool. It's
It
cool.
wasn't your 45 minutes though.
I was not talking for 45 minutes, sir. Moving on. Moving on. Moving on. But yeah, it's funny because I've had that debate on Facebook about cursive. I'm like, the exact same thing. And I'm like, do you realize that you don't have a legal signature if you cannot write in cursive? People can say what they want to say. It's not a legal signature. If you can't sign your driver's license, like you said, if you can't sign, if you're buying a car, you're buying a house, that's not a legal signature. Sorry, boo. Anyway, all right, you guys. So we have 10 more minutes because I wanted to keep it to an hour. We have 10 more minutes. Are there any questions? You guys have sort of been talking to us anyway, but are there any specific questions you have for us in reference to just something you want to know out of the general conversation we've been having today? Any more show ideas? I've been writing the stuff down as you guys have been talking. Again, the email address is the teacher project 2.0 at gmail.com. Please make sure that you guys are giving us great feedback, letting us know what you guys want to hear from us. We definitely have some ideas, but want to hear what you guys want to hear from us. Any questions from anyone? The audience. While we're waiting to see if there are any questions, go ahead, Eltani.
There's no T in the word audience, and so I didn't want you to.
I didn't say T.
No, you said audience, and that's not a word.
Oh, I didn't. I said audience.
No, not at first. Ask the chat. Ask the chat.
I think I was being funny when I was saying audience. I was being funny. I wasn't
surprised you haven't
unsheathed. This is what I'm not gonna do. Let me tell you what we're not getting ready to do. Okay,
word coming out. Are you gonna use that?
We're not getting ready to do that.
Are you gonna use your favorite word that you stole from Tracy?
No, I will not be using that over here. We're talking about education, sir. I will not be using a made up word in the realm of educational situation, sir.
People only call certain types of hands writing chicken scratch in the south. No, listen. As an English teacher, I deal with probably more writing than any other teacher, and you kind of learn to deal with some of the worst. Oh God, some of the worst handwriting. I can read anything now. I've lost years of my vision because of that. Why is Common Core needed? That is a great topic.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yes, Common Core.
Yeah. Unlike a lot of people, I'm a proponent of Common Core. I like Common Core, but we'll get to that on that day. Yeah. Ooh.
I am not. So that should be a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That should be a really good conversation because I am not a proponent of Common Core. I understand the concept, but anyway, we'll get into that. But that is definitely a great topic. I'm actually not surprised that you're a proponent of Common Core. Actually, I'm not really surprised by that. Have I ever had a parent remove their child from my class? I've had parents try. I've had students leave my class, but I've never had a parent tell me, I took my child out of your class because I don't like you. But I have had parents go to the principal and want their child taken out of my class, and the principal said that's not happening. So
I've had it several times, and they always, in the end, either one or two things happen. They either want to have them put back, or they always come back and say, I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't. Because at the end of the year, where my students are at the top in terms of scoring, and they child maybe didn't even pass whatever test it was, and they looking at me like, dog, I should have just had my child in, because it's a lot that goes on with dealing with me in the classroom. I'm rough, I'm hard, I know that. I am not for the faint of heart. It is difficult to make it through my class, but if you make it through and you have that story to tell, life is easy on the other side. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've had students whose schedules would change because of other issues and would be upset wanting to come back. I definitely have had that. But yeah, I've had parents want want their child. And I've had principals that's just like, yeah, that's not happening. Abby doesn't like the new math. Because I don't teach math, I've never, I know what the new math is. I'm not saying that, but I've never had to teach it. But I've heard horrible things about the Common Core math. My best friend, who's a scientist, who can do calculus in her sleep, has had a hard time with her children, teaching them the new math, the Common Core, and it's been very, like, they've actually used YouTube to help them teach their kids, because it's just hard. It's just a very challenging thing. Maybe I can get her to come on and talk about it a little bit more, her experience, because again, I don't teach math, I don't touch math, I don't know nothing about it. I mean, as far as teaching it. So I've taught English, I've taught social studies, I've never touched a math class, and I promise you would not want me to. That's just not. That would not be a great situation for anybody involved. You've been removed from a class, Danny. Well, I can believe that you've been removed from a class. Abby says, I'm so glad my kids are out of school because I cannot help them with any math. Yeah. Like I said, my best friend, she's been struggling with it with her kids. It's just been with that Common Core.
Funny that you mentioned that, Abby. Because I think that might be a topic too. When your children get to a certain level, there's nothing you can't. Parents, stop trying to help stop trying to do work for your students, going all the way back to kindergarten.
Okay,
that's the biggest problems in school, because see, when they get to my class, you cannot help them. Not even with my level of English, you can't help them anymore, and they are going to be looking to you to help them. And I've another 45-second story, and I'm gonna tell this from the extended version. I don't care about you. The extended version will be told one day, but the long story short is, I had a parent write a paper for a child. I gave that child the hardest F I could ever give. The parent came in for the parent conference, and I talked about it as if it was the child, although I knew it was the mom who wrote it. And I said, look at this. Look at the writing of this. This looks like it was written by someone who must be 4 years old, and this child is supposed to be in high school. Look at the grammar here. How do you explain this child being in my class, writing this poorly, putting words together? I knew I wasn't talking about the child. I knew that the mother had written it. I said, this looks like someone who never sat a day in my class, never even knew what the assignment was, never taken an English class in their lifetime. Baby, that mama left there so mad with me, because she, at one point, I think she knew that I knew she wrote it, and I was really talking about her. She was so mad, baby. She was ready to fight me. I always have parents ready to fight me. I'd be sitting there so calm. A mess.
I think we have all had those moments. I mean, not that specific, but we have all had those moments. When I was working at the jail, we had a student come through who was supposedly being homeschooled. So we had to get her set up on the computer so that she could log into her homeschool, so she could, instead of coming to class with us, she was given permission to do her homeschooling. The child didn't even know her own password to log in. We said, well, how do you do this every day if you don't even know how to log into it? Well, my mother logs me in. We were like, okay. So we had to call her mother to get the password to get the child logged into the thing. And once she was in, she had absolutely no clue how to work it, how to maneuver it, how to get into her lessons, none of it. And so, of course, eventually we figured out, once she didn't know the password, we already figured that out, that you're not actually doing this. Your mother is doing this online school for you. You are not doing this online school. And of course, getting into the legal side of it, that was a part of her condition of, her probation, that she was supposed to be going to school every day, and she had special permission to do homeschooling. It was a mess. But yeah, that was funny that we were sitting there, the child didn't even know how to log into her own daggone classroom information. But yeah, the petty jumped out of El Teddy. But I feel like that jumps out a lot. I feel like it jumps out of Dami, I feel the same way. I want to go back and get my PhD as well. For me, it's not the lazy. For me, it's the money. I'm actually in the process of looking for it.
Save the years of your life. Save the years of your life. Oh, dear God. Well, no, I'm going to say this, because when I got my doctorate back in 2007, we can have a one on this as well. it was a lot different in terms of doing your dissertation and doing and the lead up and doing all of your own research and so forth, and so on for your defense and so forth. Whereas nowadays, a lot of people pay for their research, and have other people do the research for them, and then they will write their dissertation based on the research that was collected for them, as opposed to back in the day where you really had to go and do all of your own research and do all of your statistics and, you know, standard deviations and all of that stuff. And you had to sit with one of those students from the stats department, and they had to sit down and work your numbers for you and all of that stuff for your dissertation and for your defense. And yeah, oh God, don't remind me. Oh, the years I lost in mine. That's a story time for my regular channel. The day my first day I defended my dissertation, there's a whole big story about that. I'll tell that on my personal channel one day.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Well, you guys, this has been an hour. I wanted to keep it to an hour. I appreciate everybody who came through, everybody who subscribed. Please subscribe. We're looking forward to continuing this conversation, extending the conversation. I wrote down a lot of what you guys said suggestion-wise. If you think of something later, just drop us the email, and we will catch you guys next time. Thank you, everybody, and peace. Hey, Monk Chip, you came in right as we get ready to leave, but thanks for coming through, boo. Hello.